I would like to introduce to you a woman of several children who is nothing less than a hero. So, what a great example to all of us to meet a bona fide hero. And when we use that word hero, we tend to picture people in battle and pulling people out of fires. But a hero is simply someone, and there's an entire book written on the qualities of heroes, is someone who faces their fear. They're afraid, and they move through it. There's no heroism without fear. This woman is perfect because she starts off like all of us with feet of clay and afraid and chaos and not knowing how to be a parent. And she learned and she became afraid and she moved through it and has experienced phenomenal success mixed with less than success, like the rest of us. Hence, my desire for you to meet her. We talk again. So thanks for doing this, because parenting is a subject that scares most people to death. You can give people advice about diet and health and politics, but give somebody suggestions about their parenting and they immediately become defensive. And when people talk about their kids, they're never asking for suggestions about parenting. Oh no. Tell me a little bit about the beginning. Back when I first met you, or, go back a little bit. What was it like in your family?
In my family? Okay, so if we're talking just maybe before I started talking to you regularly, things were kind of insane. That's probably the best way to put it. So I have 5 kids, ages 15 down to 9 currently. And things are often like a circus is probably a good way that I would describe it. I mean, I'm talking chores or bedtime or anything. And things like, I feel like getting kids to clean up after themselves was a disaster. I feel like there was just so much. Could try to give a
Cleaning up,
snapshot of what things were like at the time.
doing chores, going to bed, everything was a struggle.
Everything. Yes. Everything.
And you're really not exaggerating. Every bloody thing was a problem,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
which for you must have been exhausting.
It was. And that's what was so hard is I felt like I had been learning about parenting the whole time I was a parent. I'd been really, really trying to find ways to be loving to my kids and help teach them. And it was so frustrating to be trying so hard and then to still have it be so difficult all the time. Yes.
I'm going to kind of interject talking to everybody who's watching. If you're not identifying with a great deal of what Katie's saying, Katie's the one we're talking to. I neglected to introduce you. If you're not paying attention. We've become so accustomed to the little quibbling, the little shots back and forth. Well, you did this the most, you touched me first. That just arguing stuff, it becomes like a background noise. With your kids, it had just gotten bigger to the point that you were just tired of it. In fact, if I remember, it's been a while, you presented with the 12-year-old, we'll call her, who was just a nightmare. You describe it.
Well, at the time, I very lovingly referred to her as being in full-on terrorist mode. I love terrorists, so but that's probably the best way I could describe her. At the time, there was not a single rule I think that she followed. Even if there was a consequence, she would not listen to it, wouldn't follow through. She would run out the door the second she got a consequence she didn't like and take off. And there was very little I could do about it, or I felt like there was very little I could do about it. She was getting in trouble at school, having attitude issues with her teachers, as well as breaking plenty of school rules. And I was very much at this point, considering her age and her behavior, I felt like maybe she was on a trajectory that I couldn't help her come back from. So I know that was when I first reached out to you, was like, help, please.
And bless your sweetheart, honey, you were paying attention. Not long ago, the terrorists, I love your choice of words, because kids use the same technique that terrorists use. Why do terrorists do the things that they do? To incite fear in the hearts of the people they're terrorizing, so that they will then accommodate them in their desires, so that they'll give in. That's why they attacked Israel. And people look at this and go, oh, what a really horrible thing. Where do you think terrorists come from? First, they are terrorists in the home. And
Yeah.
so what your daughter was doing was terrorizing you, so that you would become so reluctant to approach her with rules, consequences, chores, that you'd eventually give up. And she'd live the high life, baby. She could do whatever she wanted, not realizing, of course, that that leads her to then be a terrorist in relationships, jobs, and so on. And she spends the rest of her life crippled. She's looking for freedom and she's crippling herself. So you learned more about real love. You felt loved, which was critical.
Yes.
You could feel love in your heart. And then you started applying this at home. Do you remember the first few emails that you sent to me when you started applying this at home?
I'm trying to think back. Um,
Oh,
let me
don't think too hard. There was a honeymoon period. Do you remember that?
well, I remember when first, yeah, starting having felt that, and then just this desire to share it with my kids. That, well, realizing that so much of it had been me not offering the love that they needed, and having felt that for myself, then obviously I wanted to share that with them, and it was just so amazing. And they were just drinking it up. They were just, you could tell they had just been basically dying of thirst as far as getting love from their mama. And so, yes, that's a good way to explain it. Yeah, a honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
It's pretty magical.
Your your courage is astonishing. When parents hear that they're screwing up their kids, they immediately fight the notion. They dismiss it. And so, of course, they keep screwing up their kids. You didn't fight it. You said, holy crap, I've really screwed up my kids. Yes. And now there's something you can do about it. And you went home and started loving those kids, and you described them crawling all over you like little puppies, and bedtime was a delight, and you're telling them stories. The 12-year-old is drinking this up, and her behavior is changing without you ever actually addressing the behavior,
Right.
which was miraculous. And also, it's fairly predictable.
Yeah.
But then kids aren't raised in a vacuum. And you have the particularly difficult problem that you're divorced. And so half the time, roughly, um, they spend with their dad, who doesn't unconditionally love them, mostly sees them, as most parents do, as kind of an inconvenience to be pacified. And so what you do with those kids is you just don't give them chores or anything, and you don't require they do their homework, and you give them video games and whatever. And he's got a girlfriend, and it's like, oh, just go away and be quiet. And the kids are perfectly content with that because it's fun. She
It's
gets to
easy.
play video games. She gets to do whatever she wants to. So even though she's got this initial rush of love from you, half the time she goes into an environment of chaos and being entitled and spoiled and enabled. And she started to get those feelings of, I want to be in control back.
Yeah.
And then she started fighting. And then she did that jive with you that she's always done, which is she just runs out of the house, as in a runaway.
Hmm.
And, parents just go, oh, well, she just is going through that phase. No, that's called a runaway child. Describe what happened then. So she runs away, and what'd you finally decide to do?
Um, is this the time when I texted you to ask? Okay. So because this is a thing that had happened a lot previously, and in these situations, I would feel so, maybe stuck is a good way to describe it. I don't know what to do. And in the past I had even called the police because I wasn't sure. I'm like, I have a 12-year-old who's running out the door and gone, and I don't know where she's going, and that's not safe for her. And I was told basically I just needed to discipline my kids better. And so, which I was, I thought was kind of a funny thing to say. Why do you think she's running away? But so, uh, this the last time that she ran away, I texted you and was asking for just like perspective, because I was like, in these situations, I usually feel so lost and I don't know what to do. She's basically running the household in these situations because she's not following rules, which means she's doing things that are negatively affecting everybody else in the home. And then when she would get, a consequence for that, whether it was just even cleaning up her own mess, she did not want to have to deal with that. So then she would run out the door. And then at that point, not much else I can do about it. So we have a 12-year-old who's effectively head of the household here. And it, like you said, chaos is a good word to describe that, because I have 4 other kids who are being also influenced by this, having experienced the negative effects of it. And she's showing, look, all I have to do is run out the door and we don't have to do anything. So feeling stuck is definitely a good way to describe how I felt. And so do you want me to explain what you offered as a solution?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So I explained to you what happened. Hey, I don't know how to handle this. This is usually where I feel completely lost and I don't know what to do. And you offered just an option. Hey, there's something that could be done. If you're willing to do it, it would be really impactful to your daughter. And so I was a little bit, when you start something with that phrase, I was like, oh, sure, let's see what it is. And so you sent, like you mentioned, things are in some ways more lax at their dads, and in some ways they also behave differently at their dads because there's a fear of their dad and the way that he'll react to things. And so, but things to them come off as it's just easier at dads because we comply to more of the things that he says because we don't want any negative reaction. And then we also just get to be on tablets and whatever. So to them it feels easier than coming over to mom's where they have expectations and chores and have to be, they're not just staring at a screen all the time. So that would often be the case where she would also argue or fight against, maybe having a consequence or something with wanting to go to her dad's. And so you offered, well, if she's not going to be able to be home and accept consequences, follow expectations, and running off, she's not safe, then I think she needs to go to her dad's. And so when she walked in the door, I was so grateful to finally have a solution because my brain had not been able to come up with that on my own. And so I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. I know how much experience you have in helping so many families with very similar situations. And so I was grateful to have a suggestion like that. And I trust you. So by the time she walked in the door, I had car keys in hand and I told her to go get in the car. And she was very confused at first. And then when I told her I was going to be bringing her over to her dad's, she was actually very upset, which was kind of surprising to me because that's what she, in those situations, would always tell me she wished she could go live with her dad.
You're doing a great job of describing this. I'm going to condense a whole bunch of events into just a minute
Okay.
or so.
Yeah.
Great job of describing this. So here's a kid who alternates between a place where she feels unconditionally loved, but she also has to conform to some standards of behavior or there are consequences. So that's a real push-pull for her. It's a good thing that she feels loved, but she doesn't like the consequences of just being insane. And so you finally had the courage to just deliver her to dad's. If you want to live with dad, if you want to live in that environment, go for it. Because at dad's, there's no unconditional love. There's no love of any kind. But at least he leaves her to do whatever the heck she wants to do. She doesn't have to clean up. She didn't have to do anything. Although she has the element of she's afraid of his disapproval. But see, as long as she keeps minimum standards, she can avoid his disapproval. So she's learned, she just does the math in her head, not consciously, and goes, it's easier at dad. You summed that up beautifully. And then dad, of course, being a completely irresponsible human being, he doesn't want her. He never did. It's important for families, mixed families, or families after divorce, shared custody, to understand that almost always one spouse, in this case your ex, doesn't really want the kids. He just wants to hurt you by you not having them all the time. It's a great way to hurt your spouse. And so he just sort of warehouses them. And so when you dropped her off, he's going, you got to be kidding. I don't want this kid here full time, proving he does not care about her. So what did he do? He dumped him off at his parents' house. He dumped
My
her off.
parents' house. My
Well,
parents' house.
first
Oh,
his,
yeah,
remember?
yeah, yeah. You're right.
And then his parents went, because they raised him, and his parents went, we don't want this. So they dump him off at your parents' house. And it sounds like a mess. Most parents would be agonizing and going, oh, what are we going to do? I've lost my daughter. Oh, calm down. Because if you respond to the demands of a terrorist, what happens? They keep terrorizing. We actually train them to do this insanity. You didn't give in. You weren't hateful. You were very concerned over her, but you just left her at your parents, and she's lived there for what, a month now, easily.
Yeah.
And one of the other kids decided to go that way, even. Well, hey, if she can get away with this. But the remaining three are doing the math unconsciously in their head and going, Mom puts us to bed and holds us and kisses us and tells us stories. We really like that. Now, describe the effect on the remaining three kids now that the two terrorists have left. No criticism of them. They're
Right.
just saving their own lives and their addled brains. What's the effect on the remaining three?
Well, even after just the first one left, so the time difference between the first one going over to her dad slash my parents' house, and then the second one choosing to kind of join her, was at least a month or so. And I feel like after the 12-year-old was gone, it was almost like an instant. And like I said, this is no criticism to her, but you can see then the effect that her behavior had on our household, and the influence she had on the other kids. And it felt like an almost, I don't want to say maybe relief. That just sounds, I don't know. Maybe that's
No,
the word I can think of in my mind, right?
that's
Is
okay.
it felt like almost like a relief. And while the other kids were bummed that she was gone, they missed her, but they were like, things are so much different now. Because in general, kids were listening, following the rules. And this one, when I say this child was in full on terrorist mode, the rules and things that she was not following, if negatively affected everybody. She would steal her sister's stuff and ruin all their things. So their clothes, their makeup, anything. She would leave messes absolutely everywhere and refuse to clean them up. So nobody's stuff was safe. We have lockers with locks on them where people were locking their things up because this child would get into it and take it and steal it and use it and trash it. And
I'm not defending, I guess explaining you that if you had a train station filled with 500 people and they're all going about their business and the trains are operating perfectly and everything's ordered and peaceful, how many people does it take who are shooting guns in the air and screaming to disturb the peace of 500 people?
right.
One.
Yeah.
And here you've got 5 kids, and this kid is just a nightmare of chaos, not just by herself, but terrorists can't resist setting everyone around them. They want to create as much chaos as possible because then they are in control. It gives them a real sense of power and, regrettably, meaning. So what you did you didn't throw them out. You just allowed them to run away. And now your parents are enabling them. Well, that's not your problem. Most of those kids figure out that they liked being loved better. They do, they return. They learn that simply being fed, cake and ice cream, every meal of the day and getting what they want isn't enough. But we don't know that. You have the simply unbelievable faith and courage to allow this to play out. because all you can do is be loving and teach the kids who are willing to be loved and taught.
Right.
If you've got a kid who's shooting a pistol at you every time you love and teach, mm, that's ineffective. It's ineffective to keep trying.
Right.
So you just allowed them to go away. I've actually seen parents allow the state to take them as foster children. And oh, so many people would say that that's just not permissible. Excuse me? You've got 3 children whose lives you are saving. And the kid who's run away, now 2 kids who run away, they're not worse off than they were before. And now they're not completely disrupting the train station in your house.
Correct. Yeah.
So I'm going, dang, kid, this took some like unbelievable courage on your part. How, throughout this process, how have you felt about yourself?
Ooh, so much more. You mentioned courage, and I've definitely been feeling that. The confidence has been through the roof. Like I said, in previous situations, I would feel so lost, so stuck, didn't know what to do. And with me learning about real love too, yeah, I know this is a lot of this is about loving and teaching my kids, but I'm being loved and taught at the same time. And me being able to experience that, which is also really cool to be able to think about that that's what my kids are experiencing and how important that is to them, because I've been experiencing it for myself. The peacefulness, the confidence is through the roof. Where in the past, the idea of letting my kids go to their dads was terrifying to me, and in a way, I realized how much I was enabling them because I was trying to quote unquote protect them, from their own choices. Really, in the end, and now feeling like you mentioned the word faith, and I feel like the amount of faith I have in the fact that I guess in real love principles is the way to put it. In that real love wins, I guess, is kind of it gives me a lot of peace and confidence in this. In that this might feel hard, excuse me, hard. But I know in the end it's what's best for them and for my other kids, and that gives me like so much peace and confidence in doing these things. And I know then I'm able to better love and teach the children that are here. And then when the other kids if they were to choose to come back, which I'm very hopeful that they might or they will, I know that I'll be able to love and teach them in a way that will help them be the happiest. So
You've had a remarkable trust in the principles of love, but even more remarkable, you made a choice at some point to trust that I'm loving you.
yes. Hmm.
Wow. That's made all the difference. We've got to feel loved by another person. And considering that you've been let down or betrayed or abandoned by every single human being in your life, and I'm not
Not an exaggeration. No.
to decide to trust another person is simply a miracle to me. You sit differently. That may not make sense to you yet. Hang on. Your face is different. Look at me differently. Everything's different. Your confidence, like you said, through the roof. And the remaining 3 kids are feeling that. With time, I have confidence that the other 2 will too. So, because the other 2 are hearing the stories of the remaining 3 when they get together at their dad's, your efforts are just astonishing to me. And you've heard me say that before, but I wanted other people to meet you so they could see what it's like to be a hero. The terrorists don't just grow out of neutral soil. These terrorists in Gaza started off like terrorists like your 12-year-old kid. And parents just, maybe you should discipline them better. Are you kidding me? You're already doing everything you've ever heard of, and it's not working. You used the word stuck. I would add the word helpless and terrorized.
Yeah.
So, way to go, honey. I admire what you're doing. And I really believe that as some people watch you, they're going to get a glimmer of hope that they can do it differently. So, thanks for being with me, sweetie. I hope you've enjoyed meeting Katie as much as I've enjoyed knowing her. She's a delight. She was just lost in the intricacies of dealing with her fear as she tried to love and teach her children. She found it impossible to do by herself, as most parents do. But rare are the parents who are willing to receive help, because rare are the parents who are willing to say, I am not doing well by myself as a parent. I can't do this by myself. It's not working. No, parents have bought into the lie that because they are parents, they know how to be parents. Well, we don't. Loving and teaching are not natural acts. And this woman is a great example of learning, trusting, implementing, making mistakes, learning some more, making more mistakes, making different choices, and in the end, enjoying the fruits of her choices.